All right. How's the screen look? Can you see my opening slide yet?
Yes, just we can see the stuff on the side too, but yeah, we can see.
I want to hit, yeah, I gotta hit slideshow right from beginning. How's that? There it is.
Great.
All right, here we go. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It was really great to meet Laura. And coincidentally, she is my daughter's library teacher as well at Dartmouth Middle. So lots of connections. And I did a little bit of homework on your group and very impressive. Watched a couple of your YouTube meetings and stuff. So educating myself as I go. Please feel free to ask anything and anything about what I'm doing, what we're doing in the city. It's a wonderful department I'm in. I feel honored to be there, but I've only been there for 1 year. So if I don't know the answer, I will also do my best to get it for you, and get back to you as soon as I can. So again, my name is Courtney Cohen, and my official title with the city is Environmental Project Manager with the Department of Resilience and Environmental Stewardship. We are at City Hall. Feel free to reach out. Just a quick review of my background. I am a civil and environmental engineer. I am born and raised in Dartmouth, went to Dartmouth schools, and from there I went to Worcester Polytechnic Institute, not too far away, as a civil and environmental engineer, in my bachelor's in science there. And then from there, right out of college, and working through college, a local engineering firm called Prime Engineering Inc. out of Lakeville. Was there for 15 years or so on the private side, civil environmental cleanup, everything from residential design, build, engineering to cleanups. One of my favorite, or not favorite, but one of our biggest accomplishments at Prime that you will all recognize is the redevelopment of the brownfield site of Market Basket on Cogswell Street. So that went from the Fairhaven Mills, demolish, but reuse materials on site and underneath the paving and the parking lots to not have to dispose of as much of the waste that we had of the soils, and build what you see today on Cogswell Street. So correlates to what I'm doing here at the city now. And in 2014, with being a mom and all the things and timing and the demand of a private sector, I switched to the public sector with the town of Dartmouth. I was there for 7 years as a health inspector. I describe myself as an environmental health inspector, focused a lot on Title V, septic system design, private drinking water wells, dealt with demolition and lead and asbestos removal on demos in the town of Dartmouth. And then from there, just last year, I switched my hats to New Bedford, and they reached out and they needed someone in their office to be an environmental project manager, which is unique. A lot of cities and municipalities don't have this department specifically, but being that New Bedford is what it is, such a big waterfront community, and so many city-owned properties that need cleanup, that need, whether they're a brownfield site, they've been demolished, whether they're in flux, what do we do with them? The city received them, whether they're tax liens or bankruptcies or foreclosures. So we keep all of those properties in check where they are with the state and the EPA. And at the same time, we do a lot for the city as far as doing what we can to get our city up and coming with resilience and environmental climate change that we're all focused on. So that's what I'm going to gear this slideshow towards. And when you can, I definitely recommend checking out our website, nbresilient.com. A lot of my slides are going to come from that website because it's a really great overview that we're always updating. We work with a consultant on that site. Every few weeks we meet, we're always adding and changing to it. And it really keeps you up to date on what's going on in the city, where we're at with things. And it's a really good resource as well. So this is a snippet from our dashboard on the NB Resilience site. So overall, there's 7 points, and the port resilience, we just added that tab this month, so I didn't have a chance to put a little fun circle, but there's 7 points to focus on within the dashboard. Our infrastructure, utilities and waste is a lot about our green infrastructure work, which I'll get into in a little bit. We work with our green infrastructure and other with all other departments. So I will say that as much as I am one environmental stewardship department within the city, we work very closely with all of our departments, whether it's the fleet facilities, DFFM and management, the Department of Public Infrastructure, DPI, parks, beaches, and recs. And within my office, I should say, is also encumbered with the Conservation Commission. So we're very close to our wetlands protection as well. And we all really coincide and work together on the daily basis. So with our infrastructure, we're even getting involved with our master strategy plan, which again, I'll also discuss a little bit further. We're always trying to work with the conservation department, how to make sure that their stormwater management review and permits that they're going through are in the best eyes of the city and what we're trying to get to. A quick thing about our infrastructure is the trees in New Bedford, they prevent over 49 million gallons of stormwater from entering the streams and waterways in and around our city every year. And we're working hard to put more trees every year, getting into our natural resources. We've planted more than 3,300 new trees in New Bedford since 2015, which actually sequesters enough carbon to offset 33 homes. And again, we're always working on that. And when you're planting more trees, you're cooling the city, you're protecting our urban canopy and helping our energy costs as well, which leads you into your public health and safety, again, working with all of our departments. Public health and safety is a wide, broad term, but you got to think about it as we all need to work together to outreach to our public, what's going on in the city, what people can do better for the environment and in their best management to protect themselves, their homes, and their properties. We have outreach that I go to the ward meetings in the city, and we discuss the things I'm discussing here today, including the green infrastructure, our hazard mitigation plans, anything to do to keep you safe before and after a disaster. As we know, we're all in hurricane season as we speak, keeping our city safe that way. And knowing the risks, it's important to protect for yourselves, just to protect your homes for 72 hours. How can you be safe for the next 72 hours if you lose your power or anything like that? So I go around and we discuss those items. Our climate and energy is it's its own department. Our energy office is also under the Department of Resilience and Environmental Stewardship. They are housed at the City Yard over on Liberty Street. They focus on our greenhouse gas emissions, our renewable energy, and our energy use as a city as a whole. They're always looking at the numbers and what we can do to reduce it, and always trying to compare and contrast our analysis there. Economy and jobs. Very important part of our city, as we all know, is our economic value of our port. It is one of the biggest money makers in the world for port waterfront industry. Looking at our transportation, we always are thinking about multimodal transportation, different ways to transport, energy efficient transportation. We're looking into EV vehicles, green buildings, obviously renewable energies with green buildings and keeping energy usage low. And then our final and newest tile is our port resilience, which is still being worked on, but it's got a really great mapping software on it that you can utilize to look at the floodplains and as mean high sea level, low high sea level, and compare and contrast along the shorelines of the city. I have a quick video, just give you a quick overview. Oh, maybe I don't. Tried to visit. Is New Bedford really going to block me out of this? Sometimes my laptop doesn't let me do what my computer at work lets me do. So I think it won't, but I can send you that video. It's just, it's within the whole, if you go on our NB Resilience site, it's within the, what is it called? The dashboard. I believe that video is just a quick little 3-minute video of basically what I just tried to summarize. So overall, that is what my office is always focusing on and working with many departments. I'd like to just discuss with you climate change considerations and an overview of how New Bedford is attempting to be resilient. As I believe that is your major focus as a group, I thought I would hone in onto that now that I've described what we do. We're not alone that we are focused on this in the state of Massachusetts. There are many municipalities that are working with what we call Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And I think that says a lot that we're not alone, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. Again, another resource here is resilientma.mass.gov. So my figure here might be a little outdated, but you can see the latest and greatest on that resilientma.mass.gov. If you just even Google searched resilient mass, it really is a great resource to look into what municipalities are doing, what they're doing with the funding, and how they're putting it into action. For New Bedford, we have 2 MVP action grants that we've been awarded: the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which involves the greenhouse gas and baseline inventory and reduction plan. So we're working with consultants to put the numbers together along with our energy office and look at where New Bedford is as a city and what we can do to reduce our energy and carbon footprint, as our goal is to get to net zero by 2050. We're also working closely with the Fairhaven Port, New Bedford and Fairhaven ports, and what we can do to improve the ports. We've done an actual physical analysis coming in with CZA. I think that's one of my slides after that, but coming in with CZA, which is a consulting firm, where they have actually sent divers down and they've looked at the port itself, how structurally sound it is or isn't, and where it's going, and what they need to improve it, and especially keeping in mind sea level rise. So again, as I keep saying, but I think it's really important to know that New Bedford is a team. It really is the New Bedford way to work together with all your departments, because we can't all do it alone, and everybody has so much knowledge, and it's such a big city. I've been there a year and I feel like I meet a new employee still almost every week. So the comprehensive master plan is currently in progress. Sorry, you can hear the dog. My daughter's getting home. That is with the planning department, and that is in progress. The open space and recreation plan, that is currently also with parks, recs, and beaches. The all hazard mitigation plan, the comprehensive emergency management plan, and the evacuation plan are set to be for next year. We've just got the funding forwarded through that. And it's exactly as it's described. We are just looking at all of the city, not just the waterfront, even portions of the city that's further inland, of what they can do to prepare in emergency situations. And you have to have those plans in place to then qualify for other grants and funding from the state and from the federal government. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to keep moving with your grants and being awarded any of those. We also have our integrated capital improvement plan. and our departmental budget developing plan. So the mayor requires everybody, if you have a resilience or renewable energy plan that you want to put in place in your office, he encourages, or in his department encourages you to put that money in your budget, put that aside annually in your fiscal year budgets. That is highly encouraged, and all of our department heads are doing that as we speak each year. To keep on the path of our departments coordinating, we have our greenhouse gas baseline inventory and reduction target that's going on through the energy office. We have our designated port area resilience that I was mentioning, where they've done that analysis, that port vulnerability analysis. They are designing based on sea level rise. They are using the Maritime Industrial Resilience Toolkit. And you, again, if you go on that NB Resilient website, under that new port link, port resilience link, you can look at those maps. You can actually see the different where, you know, at different years, what the Woods Hole mapping of what potentially our shoreline and waterfront could look like with sea level rise. And as I mentioned, that CZM Coastal Resilience Grant, which did the structural analysis with the divers going down and looking at the port and the pilings and the marina that we currently have and what to do next. The code red NB alert multilingual alert system, and that's in place. We currently have that in place both in Portuguese and Spanish for the city, that if there is emergency that hits, whether it be caused by weather or floods, and I think COVID kind of taught us all of that as well. These can go out. They have these systems in place in preparation for whatever climate change brings us. So that's definitely ongoing as we speak, and the funding is there for that. The Resilience Hub pilot planning, this is a great concept. And it's not in place, but it's definitely in the works. We're working with the Economic Development Council on that. We have two properties in the city, the old Capitol Theater on Acushnet Ave and the Denison Community Center. And when we say Resilience Hub, we're talking about potentially having places where you could go, and if you need to charge your phone because you have no power, if you need to, reach out or use a computer, like these places can be run in a time of an emergency. Maybe, the city wipes out power. So these are hubs, and the funding is coming from EPA to support these. And the design is in place. They would be buildings and facilities that could run by themselves in the chance of a power outage. They talk about those, I don't know if you've heard of these bikes that you pedal and they create power. And they would have those bikes there for the public to use and charge your phone and get a little exercise kind of thing. There would be a place for you to outreach if you needed food pantries, kitchens. So those are in design work phases. They have been for a while. COVID put some things on pause, but they really are coming. We would expect those to at least be approved through the departments for permitting in the next year or so. The last one listed, the West Beach Seawall protection. So that's also happening as we speak. West Beach is, Laura mentioned we were at Eileen's store. That's just beyond Kilbourne Beach, south, Kilbourne Mills, the beach just south of the mills, and the seawall there. So that's the Department of Infrastructure is working on that protection right there, because that wall is one of the deteriorating ones. So green infrastructure, I don't know how many of you have heard about green infrastructure. It's a really cool concept. And this is one of the things I've been to several ward meetings. They have monthly ward meetings in the city, different neighborhoods get together, and it's free to the public to just attend. This is one thing that you as an individual homeowner, property owner can do, and it's also something the city itself is designing and permitting and working on getting the funding for. These are ways for us to collect our stormwater and our runoff and not have it run into our stormwater and sewer piping and ultimately into our treatment system and then kicked back out into the ocean. It's ways for us to plant vegetation. Oh, I don't think you can see my pointer, but the bottom left, that is a bioswale garden around the tree. So that vegetation is planted with purpose. It's heavy greens and grasses that will absorb water. That trenching system is made so it's not just a tree, a sidewalk tree, it's actually made to absorb your stormwater at a greater evaporation level. So you're not just having wood chips run everywhere. The pavers in the bottom center, those are what they call impervious pavers. So they actually also absorb water versus pervious pavers where it just runs off and then is directed into a different swale. So those are really great stonework that can be used, and it doesn't count against your property. If any of you are small property owners or have worked in development at all, you have a requirement to have a certain percentage of pervious and impervious area when you're developing a property. These would be under impervious, and you could help you in your design and obviously reduce your stormwater runoff into our city piping and reduce the overload into our CSOs or combined sewer outfalls. And that's where the MS4 permit compliance come in. Our MS4 is a Massachusetts permit compliance that New Bedford is signed up for and is trying their best to meet by 2030, where we are going to reduce our stormwater by certain levels. I forget all the numbers, but it's really all about reducing what we put in. So when you develop a property that was once vacant and that runoff used to be absorbed by trees and plantings and vegetation, and you develop it, where does that stormwater go? Excuse me one second. And then there's another garden there, and it's about improving your ponds, cleaning up the vegetation, and improving your surface water quality. We've got a permitted, if we're all familiar with our Buttonwood Park and the pond right there as you get off of 140. We have the senior center just off to the east of the pond if you pull into Buttonwood Park, and we have two beautiful rain gardens that will improve that pond greatly with all that stormwater runoff that comes from Buttonwood Park, Kempton Street, Route 6, and that pond is in need of improvement. We've got the permitting, just waiting for the funding for the work. And as we all know, costs have increased over these past few years. So that is one of our favorite things, my favorite thing going on, because as soon as we can get it implemented and we're working on jobs training, we actually have 3 certified green infrastructure trainers in the city that work for the city that can train the public, train companies in green infrastructure installation. We're actually hosting a class through my environmental jobs training program the end of the month for the first time. So looking forward to get that up and running. So we're not just always working with the city departments, we're working with local communities. So this is a picture with, I believe, Groundwork South Coast. They are a program in the city that incorporates youth and getting people together for improving our parks. This is at Riverside Park, which is off of Belleville Ave, just north of the Market Basket site, Cogswell Street. They've done a lot of great things over there. We're working with them. We get together at least a couple times a month and go over the projects we have with them. They're also involved with the Resilience Hub at the Capitol Theater and getting that off and running. That's a great group we work with. So the green infrastructure projects that we have to date in progress, the MVP is that master strategy that is in the works. Kempton Street corridor design, we just got approval for $150,000 for that. That will involve from about the intersection of 140 to I want to say Mill Street or so, along Kempton Street. We'll be looking into improving the street and sidewalk trees there, the gardens there, all to be green infrastructure, actual structures with those vegetation and gardens. As I mentioned, the Buttonwood Senior Center, that's through the Conservation Protection Act. Brooklawn Park also has a design out there. Goatscaping, I can do a quick picture of that one. So here we have at Riverside Park is some goats that saved us from using lawnmowers and manual labor. And they hung out there for a few days. And they actually cleaned out all of that hard vegetation to get rid of the poison ivies, the just the overgrown vegetation there, which was pretty cool. I don't know why I didn't put a before and after, but you can tell if you're ever in that area that they definitely made a difference from what you see here. This is along Coffin Ave. So where Belleville and Coffin Ave, you took a right on Coffin Ave. This is right along that bank right there. So getting back to our MVP community resilience building process, the goals of the MVP resilience building process is to really focus on identifying what hazards there are, where we are vulnerable, where's our weaknesses in the city, whether it be from climate relations, where there's a limited amount of city trees, or in the heat of the summer, or maybe it's human initiated, where there's dumping, or where there's you know, a lack of funding, and there's, you know, places being vandalized or things like that. Our infrastructure, we have, you know, whether it's an area with older actual utilities, older sewer, water main piping, where does that need to be improved? They say that 90% of our carbon emissions come from leaking gas lines in the streets. So what can we do to change that? Just last week, we were on a meeting with a company called HEAT, H-E-E-T. They are talking about proposing, and they've got a couple of cities in this Commonwealth that are putting in geothermal closed loop heating and cooling into neighborhoods. And that would do is actually replace your gas lines. You would have water instead in your geothermal heated piping. All very new, very up and coming. We are doing our best to learn about it and see if and when we could make it an option in New Bedford. Like I said, I just had our first initial meeting on that last week, which was pretty cool. And again, cost and equity, because we know that New Bedford has a diverse demographic, and equity is always on the forefront of our minds, and it shouldn't matter what your income is for your health and for your neighborhood. You should not have to do climate change will affect us all, and preparing for that is important to all of us. So again, my office is always looking into funding and how do we afford what we want to do. Luckily, excuse me, right now, there is money to be had. Our current administration is definitely supportive of climate change and is recognizing the importance of it. And we are working hard to get that funding into our city and qualify for all of those grants that we can. But it is competitive, and it is definitely a process as anything. Excuse me. As you can tell, I'm like getting over a head cold. It's not COVID, but it's definitely just proper sinuses. So just overall, we just need to be creative and stay alert and keep our community educated on what's going on. For example, site-specific hazards that we're always thinking about that Mother Nature could bring: coastal flooding, riverine flooding, nuisance flooding, meaning like where there's blockages in the city infrastructure, whether it be catch basins or drainage swales or things like that that need maintenance. So we call that a nuisance flooding. High winds, extreme precipitation, extreme heat, the opposite, like we had this summer, extreme colds, droughts. We're still experiencing that as much rain as we have. We're still in a drought phase, not as severe as we were. We've dropped a category, but however, it's still definitely still a drought right now. Vandalism and proximity to other hazardous facilities. As we all know, New Bedford is an old industrial city, and as many surrounding cities are in our state, it has its long-term effects on us. So this is a quick 3 pictures of the risk evaluation for the flood exceedance probability. So you are looking at State Pier, right across in New Bedford. 2030, 2050, and 2070. So the percentages are 100% being that we will have that risk, the waters will rise, and then 50% probability, and down the line, purple to the light pink is the 1.1%. So you can see we're almost even at a point in 2050 where it almost comes up to Route 18. And then the colors get brighter in 2070. So this is a picture of, I believe we're standing on the Riverwalk site on Belleville Ave, located at 740 Belleville Ave. You've got Titleist just to your south where that chain link fence is and the smokestack. So this is when they were doing dredging. The EPA was doing dredging in the Acushnet River. Again, this is March of 2018. And then they were taking that material and either putting it in a CAD cell or disposing of it off-site out of state. It just goes to show you how high that is prior to the dredging. It definitely doesn't look like that today. Now, 4 years later or so, they have improved that completely. The EPA is only about 2 years out from completing their Superfund work along the river. And again, keeping sea level rise in mind while doing it all. They've done amazing plantings along that, and we'll be working on our Riverwalk. And that's, the Riverwalk is probably a whole other presentation I can go over, but it's all being kept in mind while we design and try to improve our city every day. Our vulnerabilities, again, a little bit of a repeat, but overall, it's just key to recognize that we are keeping in mind our infrastructure, our power reliability, stormwater capacities, and the critical components to keep that in place, having access to maintain and repair in all assets, whether it's on private or public lands, and getting the community involved, our environmental justice areas, which is a majority of the city, our compounding stressors, and our ecosystem. Again, it's all part of our meeting and planning and what we're doing to develop these response actions. What are we doing short term? What are we doing long term for permanent and versus temporary solutions? This is just more just to keep in mind how we're designing what we're doing and our goals. It's important to be able to withstand what hazards Mother Nature will throw at us, what hazards we've created ourselves, whether it be through our industries and our waste. And again, the importance of equity. The resilience planning hierarchy. This is pretty key. We're working with multiple consultants, the Port Authority, the city, and our surrounding cities, especially in the harbor. So 3 things we're always keeping in mind: avoidance, protection, and recovery. By avoidance, we mean achieving background, the cost benefit analysis, look into the background of what we've got going on. The Office of Technical Assistance and Technology is supporting us, giving us the numbers so we are best prepared for our designs, especially along the waterfront. Eliminating the future compounding releases, testing, sampling, analyzing, working with DEP. And then protection, flood proofing, secondary containment, to protect not only just the people, but the ecological habitat and the vegetation and our existing stormwater utilities. Power backup, generator and battery backup, reinforcement construction, keeping that in mind when we're giving out our permits and awarding people their permits at the city level, that they're being constructed to meet the latest and greatest Massachusetts building codes to be able to survive where they're located throughout the decades ahead. Stormwater management, diverting the runoff to the green infrastructure. Those will help reduce our stormwater because, as we know, with climate change, we will have potential more precipitation, more stormwater, and be able to handle that is key to reduce our flooding. And then again, collecting that flow to the green infrastructures. And lastly, recovery. So that contingency plan will educate all of us on what we can do, what's available to do, establishing safe access routes and timely reconnaissance. And then, of course, I like to say education. So appreciate you having me here to just give you a little bit of information on what New Bedford's preparing for and doing our best to stay ahead. And again, feel free, you can always email me, call our office, check out our website, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Courtney. We have a few questions, if that's okay.
Yes, of course, I'll do the best I can.
All right, so Anne was wondering about those trainings. It sounds so cool to train people in building in environmentally friendly ways. Is that only for city residents, or how does that work?
So I've only gone to the ward meetings, and we're gonna continue with it. It's not, we can definitely extend our resources. If you want to reach out and are interested in the green infrastructure classes, the training I'm doing next week is specific to, I have an EPA environmental workforce jobs training grant that I'm working on. And that is for people that are either unemployed or underemployed. They take an OSHA 40 HAZWOPER course as their prerequisite for us for free of charge under the grant. And then they are eligible for other trainings, including we have an OSHA 30 maritime. We're doing a de-leading supervisor, an asbestos supervisor, and then this green infrastructure class. I've got some forklift training courses going on. So that's specific to qualifying as an underemployed or unemployed. However, the trainers in the city are available, and we've been going to the wards. And so for spiking interest with that, we're getting it up and running next, the end of the month is our first time. So that'll be our start of the learning curve, and happy to grow it from there. So please reach out.
And then I was curious about you talked about talking to the ward at the ward meetings with people about ways to be prepared in case of an emergency. Do you have like a list with like, this is what you should have in an emergency kit that you're like giving out? Do you have a list that's, you know, already printed and ready to go?
Yeah, so let me see if I can quickly pull that. So that was one thing I forgot to mention. So in our NB Resilient website, there is a tab that's called Actions You Can Take. And so if you click on that, it actually promotes actions under each category, including create an emergency preparedness kit and see what you need. Let's see if I can go back to showing my screen.
That's great. Yeah, I just was curious because that's something I've seen a lot of other climate groups or, you know, cities have available, like at tabling opportunities and things like that, so that people can see this is what you should kind of have prepared.
Did it share? Can you see that? No.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
we can see it.
So yeah, so actions you can take includes actions you can take yourself, whether it's building a kit like this, or whether, you know, on your own property, incorporating rain barrels for watering your gardens and plants, and reducing your own stormwater runoff from your own roofs and roof drains and driveways. It's just a lot of stuff within the whole site.
Another question that someone had was about kind of, so one was, why doesn't the city plant trees on brownfield sites that are in limbo, like Morris and Elko? And also if the city has a plan to address shuttered church properties in the city, if any of that falls under you and your department.
Definitely Morse cutting tool falls under us, as well as Elko. We are working hard to figure out and work with the community on all levels on what to do with those two properties. Currently we have funding for Morse cutting tool that is now up to us in the community, and not just, you know, one or two people, but we would like the whole, as many in the community as we can, to speak up on what will serve the city best there. So we have the gardens next door at Morse, but we just haven't planted trees